As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hits. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is an narrative story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. While Newport has an influx of millionaires for Tennis Week, Barbara Hutton grows closer to Prince Alexis Divani in France. Now back to As the Money Burns. The Hunter Class. Despite small implosions everywhere, some hide their true situations while prancing around like prize ponies at a horse show. Section 1. Story. As the 1932 summer drifts into fall, many of the wealthy find themselves in places like the French Riviera, a nice escape from the harsher realities of the lingering Great Depression. On the sunny beaches in the Côte d'Azur region, the handsome, toned, and tanned heir to 2 fortunes, James H.R. Cromwell, a.k.a. Jimmy, enjoys the surf and cafe society. He is the son of the fabulously wealthy and supreme society hostess, Mrs. Ava Stotesbury, who as a widow remarried his stepfather, E.T. Ned Stotesbury, when Jimmy was a teen. Jimmy has been having a rather busy year, which started off a little more controversial with some legal matters, but now has been smooth sailing and back to focusing on the happier elements of life. Already, Jimmy has been linked to 2 other potential beauties to become his second wife, Billie Dove in early spring, and by summer, the beautiful Italian Lydia Anita Vittoria Bodrero, the former Mrs. Valentine Everit Macy Jr. Jimmy's first wife and automobile heiress, Delphine Dodge, has already remarried to Raymond Baker. Jimmy and Delphine's 12-year-old daughter, Christine Cromwell, bounces between the 2 with occasional parental custody fights. As the young, tall, and no longer awkward heiress, Doris Duke, too, enjoys the sun while dealing with the glaring oversight of her socially ambitious mother, Nanaline Duke. Doris is a little more stylish than her former hand-me-down clothes of her pre-debutante days. Since her bow at Buckingham Palace and her somewhat smallish 600-person debutante ball at Newport, where Jimmy was her escort, Doris has been a much sought-after target of fortune hunters. Security concerns further ramp up after the tragic Lindbergh kidnapping, and Nanaline is fiercely protective over the Duke fortune. When mother and daughter walk back into their hotel lobby in Cannes, they run into Jimmy and his parents, the Stotesburys. The former astonished and the latter delighted. The first encounter between Jimmy and Doris occurred back in Bar Harbor in 1929 and ended with a naked Jimmy crawling into bed with a frightened and shocked Doris. The nearly 16-year age difference alone did not help matters. Nothing happened except Doris falling into a pool of tears. And yes, he then served as her escort a year later for her 1930 coming-out ball. Another attempted pairing occurs on Valentine's Day, 1931, in Palm Beach. Once again, Hope Diamond owner Evalyn Walsh McLean made an effort throwing a party for Doris. Evalyn, along with Jimmy's mother Eva, agreed the 2 would make an excellent match. Nanaline at first, too, likes the idea. Jimmy would later trail Doris around Europe that year. Now it's 1932. Due to fears of growing discontent from the Great Depression and threats of ransacking, the Stotesburys closed their large Philadelphia mansion, Whitemarsh Hall, and loaned its excellent artwork collection to a local museum before packing up and heading off to Europe in June 1932. Jimmy joins them on their travels, and once again he continuously runs into Doris from locale to locale as she fends off other would-be suitors. Nanaline hires private detective Max Crone as a love spy to weed out more obvious fortune hunters. Doris gets at least 1 proposal a week. Back in London, Doris escapes the sugary and overly suffocating adulations from the Earl of Poulett. Another evening she dances with Lord Fairhaven to Nanaline's delight. Nanaline fancies Doris marrying at least a count and making a good royal match, the most prestigious social position of all. Another precaution, Doris has an alarm installed in her limousine. When one overly ardent suitor lunges at her, she pushes the buttons, alarms sound off, the limo halts, and the trailing behind detectives open the door and eject the young gentleman. Fair to say, in an understatement, one reject is a little more than miffed by this treatment. Meanwhile, Doris and Jimmy engage in exchanging letters, both teasing and antagonistic. The aloof Doris runs tepid and cold when Jimmy becomes a little too aggressive. Yet she always seems to crave the attention of such a highly desirable male. After all, Jimmy is a thoroughbred stud with his own trail of wannabe Mrs. Cromwell number 2. He is so good looking and maneuvers adeptly in elite and royal circles. He possesses all the proper breeding and is very well versed in social customs, both which rules to follow and which to break. He is a member of all the best clubs and travels with a fairly lively crew, getting into enough trouble to be interesting, but not so much to be problematic. He oozes charm, sophistication, and a tad bit of naughtiness. Catnip, for sure. Then add the fact he comes from 2 fortunes, makes him a prize catch. He would never need to be a fortune hunter. For Jimmy, Doris has some fabulously desirable traits, mostly her vast fortune to which she will soon come into control in another year or two, unlike the other heiresses who are still many years away from the death that would release their funds. Doris is young, which would make her a good acolyte for his revolutionary ways. She should be pliable and under the sway of the more sophisticated older man, the daddy's girl who needs another daddy to take care of her. He also harbors political ambitions that she should sponsor more than willingly. Um, Jimmy is as oblivious as he is handsome, often seeing the world through rose-colored lenses without a true sense of reality. He is a bit spoiled, a little entitled, but fairly well-intentioned and blatantly unaware of his actual selfishness. He prances around confidently knowing he is a catch. Along the sandy beaches, the semi-flaky paramours run into another vacationing couple, debonair British Sir Alec Cunningham-Reid, a World War I war hero and former Member of Parliament, and his heiress wife, Ruth Mary Clarisse Ashley. The couple is dubbed in the press England's wealthiest girl and handsomest man upon their marriage in 1927. As Doris maneuvers about the Riviera, Jimmy is never too far behind. When she blows a cold breeze, he chastises her with statements about his other, more amiable lover, Lydia. The lovely Lydia decorated his 277 Park Avenue apartment with flowers and bon voyage gifts, only to have her heart broken when he left in pursuit of Doris that summer. Now Nanaline would be more than thrilled at a potential merger if they live off Jimmy's money. Then the Duke fortune can be used for poor, dear Walker Inman, Nanaline's oldest child and Doris's older half-brother, though not a Duke heir. Only Jimmy's playboy antics are rubbing Nanaline the wrong way, and that, of course, makes him far more tantalizing to Doris. He offers her entree to the jazz clubs and nightlife she finds appealing. Nanaline worries that Jimmy might corrupt Doris. Nanaline fears Doris has inherited the Duke dispositions of both race and class blind openness with a high, intense sex drive. Every time Jimmy shows up, Nanaline rankles. And Doris's former French governess and still companion and Nanaline's own occasional secret lover, Jenny Renaud, normally encouraging to Doris, now watches in protective trepidation at this older potential suitor. The Stotesburys, too, come off very inviting and even offering advice and guidance. In most circumstances, Nanaline would be thrilled at the entree into the upper echelons so evaded by the more humble Duke name. And there is no way Nanaline would ever want to upset the society Queen Eva by an outright refusal. However, Nanaline senses something is up. She notes the strange behaviors of the flamboyant Stotesburys, their concerns over safety at Whitemarsh Hall, their claims being a bit too loud and doth protest too much. Of course, everyone has been dinked by the stock market collapse, but could theirs have been a little more? E.T.'s money comes mainly from stock and finances. Nanaline herself lost a huge bulk, so she is more than aware of the telltale signs of hiding and diversion. She won't speak them out loud and accidentally expose her own red flags, but she grows suspicious and cautious. And yet, despite keeping Doris constantly on the move, Jimmy and the Stotesburys manage to appear inevitably. After one late luncheon, Eva politely dismisses herself as she needs to settle some pressing important matters. Though they might be abroad at this moment, the Stotesburys are still actively involved in the Philadelphia Writers and Drivers Association horse show. E.T. serves as vice president on the executive committee. Ava is chairwoman of the September Fete Committee and oversees the details all the way from Cannes. This year, Rush Hospital for Consumptives is the primary beneficiary for the fundraising. The 12th annual horse show at Wissahickon Farms is held in Whitemarsh Township, near their own Stotesbury estate, Whitemarsh Hall, in the neighboring Springfield Township. Wissahickon Farms has 3 natural water jumps and wide fields. Every day the event ends with dinner dances. Spectators and riders move about from the stables to the clubhouse onto the grandstands, then the picturesque Tally-Ho Terrace. This year there are 119 classes for entry. Deadline for registration was back on August 22nd, 1932. The events are held over the weekend on September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, 1932. Only last year, children joined the competition, starting off on ponies, on to saddle horses, then the hunter class. They learn poise and posture as well as quick decision making and self-reliance. Unlike the Royal Ascot and other race activities, Wissahickon is more a showpiece exhibition for those devoted to the sport and true sportsmanship, with events like jumping, prancing, and obstacle courses. On both ponies and horses, riders graduate from saddler to harness as they demonstrate skills and agility more than pure speed. On Friday, September 22nd, 1932, Mrs. William DuPont's horse, Corymon, wins the Venezuelan Trophy, this year's special prize. Second place in the event goes to Bon Diable, owned by Mrs. John Hay Whitney. Mid-afternoon showers caused 2 tumbles. One has face lacerations from a fall, and a different rider is thrown from his horse, then kicked in the face. Later, in a separate event, another gentleman is thrown over his horse's head during the hurdles, but is uninjured. On Saturday, September 23rd, 1932, Mrs. John Hay Whitney's gray gelding, a castrated male, 2 leggins wins blue during her competitions in the large classes for hunters. Hunters being a form of horse jumping judged not only by objective heights, but also on stylistic presentations. Hunters are based on skills relevant to field hunting and involve additional elements like manners, comfortable riding, safety, while also showing a little more artsy in presentation. Versus the pure jumper classes, focus on the fastest clean round, which are only marked on objective criteria such as faults despite style, while running through refusals, runouts, rails down, falls, etc., while performing heights and speed, essentially thrills and spills of a more jock mentality with boldness and athleticism. For the overall events, the Wissahickon Challenge Trophy is won by Old Town Hill Farm of Newbury, Massachusetts. Among the other trophies, the Fairmount Challenge Trophy is presented by E.T. Stotesbury and considered for the champion of the entire show. Mrs. Whitney also has a bit of a scare after her prize-crossed Cairn and Border Terrier tiger went missing but is returned by 2 local youth. By the way, an annual dog show for the Wissahickon Kennel Club also occurs here in May during Memorial Day weekend. Ever the lover of animals, Doris finds herself curious about the events and a potentially more enchanting life away from Nanoline's constant supervision and disapproval. Eva smiles as she parades Jimmy off to Venice away from the young heiress. Just who is the trophy and who is the prize? And who will control the reins if this union is ever made? Section 2, History and Historiography. Wealth definitely enjoys activities with competition and showcasing talent and beauty. The ever confident and resilient James H.R. Cromwell, aka Jimmy, rarely faces an obstacle that gets him down. His cushy life provided by his stepfather, E.T. Stotesbury, definitely helps soften any blows. Jimmy is the type of person who seems to endlessly rebound and moves on undaunted to the next adventure or romance. Remember his World War I fiery love affair is with supreme hostess and coloratura soprano opera singer Cobina Wright. First up in 1932, Jimmy leads a fundraiser to help support Grace Fortescue's defense, headed by the prestigious attorney Clarence Darrow in the Hawaiian Massie murder trial. His mother, Eva Stotesbury, is a devout friend to Grace and escorted Grace's daughter, Thalia Massie, during her debutante coming out. Fortunately, Jimmy avoided more legal battles over his failed Florida development when a judge threw the case out of court for insufficient grounds. Previously, his mother, Eva, and former mother in law, Anna Dodge Dillman, paid off most of the creditors from that business venture. Then Jimmy's niece and Ava's granddaughter, a newly minted debutante, Louise Brooks, marries in Palm Beach back in March 1932, amidst all the Lindbergh kidnapping chaos. Taking after his socialite mother, Jimmy is quoted in a newspaper giving advice about entertaining. However, Jimmy will go a bit too far and piss off his stepfather, E.T. Stotesbury, over one political matter: the 1932 presidential election. E.T. is an open supporter of incumbent President Herbert Hoover, while stepson Jimmy's support for rival New York Governor Franklin Roosevelt is a thorn in Stotesbury's side. Stotesbury is a prominent, wealthy Philadelphian citizen with both business acumen and civil minded activities. Stotesbury, West Virginia, is a former coal town named after Stotesbury while he was president of the Beaver Coal Company. The town flourished during the 1930s and would go through several restructurings in 1958, mid 1960s, and mid 1980s until finally closing in 2002. Overall, E.T. is very generous with his family and others. He sponsors and encourages multiple activities, which then involve adding his name. In 1927, he urges the Philadelphia rowing community to underwrite the cost for a scholastic competition. The first winner is Philadelphia's West Catholic High School. On June 6, 1932, E.T. himself presents the award for that year's competition to Catholic High School before closing Whitemarsh Hall and heading off to Europe. In 1974, females will join the competition, and the first winner there is St. Andrews of Delaware. The local race also expands to include multiple schools from Canada and the United States as they compete on the Schuylkill River with over 31 championships events. Visiting athletes stay at the Athletes Village. Today, the competition continues as the Stotesbury Regatta Cup. ET also has a strong, ongoing interest in horses and equestrian activities. The Stotesbury Clubhouse is an equestrian center used by ET from 1904 to 1908. The clubhouse features items like a fifth-floor squash court for Jimmy and a mirror maze with hidden doors used in case any prohibition raids might occur. The extensive arts and crafts style clubhouse serves as the Stotesbury primary residence until the completion of the even grander Whitemarsh Hall. In 1924, Stotesbury sells the clubhouse property. The large Stotesbury palatial estate known as Whitemarsh Hall is located in the neighboring Springfield Township, on the eastern border of Whitemarsh Township, where Wissahickon Farms is located. Wissahickon Farms is originally part of the expansion of Fairmount Park. A commission is established to raise funds in 1915. In 1917, 1,100 acres of land is purchased and includes the area then called Wissahickon Farms in Montgomery County, on the outskirts of Philadelphia along the Wissahickon River. The Wissahickon Farms Horse Show runs for 18 years. In May 1940, it is sold with the intention of turning the grounds into a cemetery. On November 2, 1940, a massive fire burns the 225-foot grandstand down to the ground in less than an hour. 100 firemen struggle to contain the fire, and traffic becomes hopelessly ensnarled as other fire crews protect nearby homes while the blaze could be seen from the road. The lack of water to fight the fire led to the rapid destruction. The origin of the fire remains unexplained. Today, the location now serves the community as George Washington Memorial Park, aptly named due to George Washington using it as a campsite during the autumn of 1777 during the Revolutionary War. Whitemarsh Township is the location of the Battle of Whitemarsh. Now, a modern Wissahickon farm, singular, is a 4,000-acre private family-owned equestrian training facility in the Springfield Township inside Montgomery County. The farm offers full care boarding, leasing, and lessons. Participants can practice dressage, eventing, and hunter jumpers. An additional note, Sir Alec Cunningham-Reid's wife, Ruth Mary Clarisse Ashley's substantial wealth comes from a British banking empire established by her maternal grandfather. Ruth's older sister, Edwina Ashley, marries Lord Louis Mountbatten, the maternal uncle of Prince Philip and the future influential mentor to his grandnephew, the former Prince of Wales, now King Charles III. The extension of wealth comes in many forms as breeding and competition showcase desirable bloodlines and connections. Section 3. Contemporary and personal relevance. What is a legacy? Part of the lure of attaining great wealth is the idea of leaving behind a legacy, not just a fortune, something that forever keeps the memory of a person in hopefully a positive way. We already know fortunes mostly disappear, but a legacy can last much longer. It might be a building or a scholarship, an invention or medical cure. It can be for the best of all humanity or simply self-aggrandizement. Often today, we can pass by or benefit from these contributions and actually be unaware of its origins or the names attached to it. The names become symbolic of the thing, activity, or place more than the person originally behind it. Would that person leaving that legacy be happy or annoyed? The Stotesbury Regatta remains the largest high school rowing competition with events scheduled in 2023 and 2024. How many of today's participants are still aware of the origins of its long ago benefactor? An award and competition that has lasted longer than the fortune that established it. Heirs should beware if they wish to have their names known long after. Alas, our heirs and heiresses are more likely to be known for scandals than more benevolent ventures. Wanting more stories involving the rich and elite from the past? Check out the Facebook group and Instagram account for Power, Privilege, and Money. They cover the individual, what they are most known for, company, mansion, and where they are buried. Movie stars and crime figures are also covered. That's Power, Privilege, and Money. Links in the notes and transcript. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns, an heiress is trapped and a love triangle exposed when forbidden lovers get caught beneath the sheets. Until then. As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard, based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via GoodPods, Twitter, now known as X, Facebook, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.